Welcome to the Super Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the new Super Gamer Podcast, episode 129. Our guest this week is a streamer, a podcaster, sort of former podcaster. We'll get into that. A speedrunner, a cold runner, and a drummer, and a big wrestling fan. We're going to get into all that, but it's also the first guest to ever refuse to actually tell me how to say their name. So it's MrrrRnight. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And that's the way you want to pronounce it, go ahead.
I like
it. The reason is, it's a running gag for those who don't understand why I never say my name or tell people how to pronounce it, is because it's anywhere you go, people pronounce it differently. When I originally made this account and made the name, I didn't think people would be pronouncing it wrong. But it's just a running gag. So I'm glad you're on board with it.
Absolutely. I'll spell it out for people who want to check you out. It's MrrrRnight, like KN Night. You started streaming in May 2015. You got into it after watching Simcopter. You wanted to learn a bit more about Hearthstone, so you checked out that stream, and then about a month later you were like, I think I'm going to try that out. I
can elaborate a little bit on that if you like.
Yeah.
That's the basic story. I went to, it was 2015, and I used to go to this brewery, and they were playing this game called Hearthstone because it came out on the iPad, and it was a night where it was just me, the brewer, and the owner were kind of just sitting on a Wednesday night, and we would talk about this game or whatever, and they were playing it, so I wanted to learn more about the game, and so I basically started looking for stuff on YouTube, couldn't find anything at that time, 2015. And then on my Xbox, about maybe a week later, I was like, what's this purple thing? It keeps popping up on my Xbox. And then I launch it. I go, whoa, people are playing video games live. And they're playing the thing that I'm trying to learn live. So I go through trying to figure out what this Twitch thing is. And then I find this random channel, Simcopter 1. And then I was like, okay, this guy's pretty cool. And the thing is that I used to play, like, back in the day, like competitive, like console playing, Halo 2, stuff like that. And it wasn't very a positive environment for the most part. And this guy did a lot of positive things, and he made it fun to learn and to make mistakes and stuff like that. And I was hooked. And a month later, after watching Sim, I wanted to figure out how this all worked. And from that day forward, I kind of found a old laptop and figured out what classic OBS, they call it now, what it was and how it worked. So,
and when you went into it, when you were like, I want to try this out, were you thinking, like, did you have any aspirations of like, I'm going to build a big community, or were you like, I'm just going to play games and, if people watch, they watch?
So, I think because in that time, like, streaming was kind of different. A lot of people streamed because they loved streaming in video games. I didn't think about communities or anything like that. I was just like, well, I guess I'll play this game and we'll kind of see what happens. I don't know how this thing works. Actually, my first stream, I played Super Mario World, and my microphone was actually my webcam microphone, and I didn't have a webcam on. And someone was like, do you have a microphone? Because like one random person found my channel, and thank goodness they did, because it was muted the whole time. So that was my first stream. And then as far as like thinking about like a community and stuff, I didn't really think about that aspect. I was just having fun playing games, and some people joined, and it was just kind of the experience of having people alongside you for the ride of whatever you're playing. And in the beginning, I would say for the first 6 months, I played games I was familiar with, like Super Nintendo games, things like that.
Right. And I'm a little surprised that you're a retro gamer mostly, not entirely. Yep. At least as far as your streaming goes. And I'm a little surprised that like SNES and Power Rangers and stuff like that is your jam, because you're not like super younger than me, but younger enough that I feel like I'm like, those are the things I grew up on.
Yeah, that's funny because I'd had two older brothers growing up, and we only got like handful of Super Nintendo games, or games in general, to be honest with you, because we didn't have a lot of money. So it was games that we either had from friends or they borrowed them, but one of the games we did on was Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That was the first the first game that got me into speedrunning, because I played the game one time randomly, and I'm like, man, I remember playing this game, and I'm like, I wonder how fast I could beat this. I beat this in an hour. I wonder if I could. Then eventually it became like a thing, and I found out what speedrunning was, and there was a board and all this stuff. And I got hooked on that pretty quick.
Which leads me to, you actually have 2 Twitch accounts. You have your speedrunning account, and you have your regular account, which I guess is everything else. Which, I got a few questions about, like, why, I guess.
So the thing with me is that for a while, so there's different parts. So I've been streaming for about 7 years, which is a long time. And there was a phase I went through probably in 2017 where I got really hooked on speedrunning, and that's all I did. And this was before the retro category was big or getting bigger. Because right now it has about 6,000, between 3,000 and 6,000 viewers in the category today. Back when I started speedrunning, it was like 100, like at most. So it was a very small category. And nothing was big about it. And that's where I used to do my speedrun, because I thought it would be the place to showcase it, because the directory for Power Rangers was very small compared to the retro section that was newish at the time, or it kind of got taken over. That's a whole nother story. But what was the question again?
Why you would have 2 separate accounts?
Yes. So to go back to the story, I had 2 separate accounts because I wanted to separate my playthroughs from speedrunning, because it was important to me. Because on my main channel, I do playthroughs of games without any hints, tips, spoilers. People can't help me. No manuals. Because I wanted a genuine, pure playthrough of somebody who at that time would go through. And versus speedrunning, I didn't want to interrupt the playthrough. It's kind of like you can imagine it like a season of a show, right? You have like 10 episodes, but if you randomly put in something that has nothing to do with the show, it kind of breaks things up. And some people look forward to the next episode. So for me, it was like organization purposes, like, okay, anything I want to do speedrunning, I want to put it here. And if I want anything with the playthroughs and keep that going, I put it over here. It's really that simple.
Considering the community you have now, though, like, does that sort of split your viewership?
No, actually, it can help, because I stream in the mornings, and then my second account is at night. So some people can catch it. It's like a bonus stream for them almost.
Okay. So yeah, actually, and I'm not taking you to task here. I'm really not. I just think it's funny, the no manuals thing. That's almost like more modern than it is retro. Like back in the day, I could have looked at a manual before I played a game. Nowadays, nope.
And the thing is, though, is that is true. But also, retro games were also not, I don't think they were ready for people to stream them in front of the internet of people who already know the game. So what's funny, though, is that the no manual thing, it happened because somebody quoted the manual to backseat me. That's what happened. And I was like, you know what? I don't even read the thing anyways. Let's just take it away. And people seem to enjoy my discovery of the controls and things I might have missed or not understand. There are instances where I might need a hint or two to keep the stream going. But for the most part, it's just me in the game. And I think people enjoy that really authentic experience of like, wow, this guy has no idea what's going on. He doesn't even know the controls. He doesn't know this. And some people are probably borderline smashing their monitors. But yeah, so essentially that's why the no manual thing is a thing, is because people thought it would be smart to backseat, or they would be like, well, it's in the manual. Well, it doesn't matter. And I would go, well, I didn't ask for that help, but okay. So it's basically to create an understanding that I know nothing about the game.
Do you get a lot, or how often do you get, like, is that someone trying to be clever and like, oh, I'm backseating, but I'm not really, or are they just like, oh, I didn't know?
So you're talking about when people accidentally say something about the game?
I guess I'm wondering, I'm sure that happens, someone says something and then, oh, I'm sorry. But do you have an issue of someone comes in and they just try and be cheeky about it and they're like, well, I didn't really backseat?
Sometimes, yeah, some people like to joke around with that. But I also make it clear that, like, I don't know if you're joking. If I don't know you, I can't really joke with you. If I don't get the joke, there's no punchline. But there are people who try to do that. And, you know, especially in popular titles, for the weirdest example, but the most popular example I've used is the Punch-Out series. It's weird. I never played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out before for the NES. And I had people already telling me how to beat Mike Tyson and all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, we need to simmer down. We're going to get there. We need to back off a little bit. But yeah, some people, you know, they like to joke around and maybe make fake spoilers and stuff. But I do get people who, you know, think they're helping, but they're also not helping at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the enthusiasm. No shot to anybody. I know what it's like to watch somebody. One time I watched someone play Super Mario World and they didn't know that you could hold Y to run. So they were playing it like just walking normal Mario. And that bothered me. And I'm like, okay, I totally get why people get upset with my channel sometimes.
When you started, I believe when you started streaming, you were already living in a dorm, right?
So when I started streaming, I was playing on an old laptop. So what happened is that I was working and going to college, a community college, and then I moved and I continued to stream in a dorm with 2 other people. And I was like, listen, I do this streaming thing. I'll do it when you guys aren't around. I don't want to, you know, take up the room or anything. I mean, they were pretty good about it. And, you know, shout outs to them for letting me stream, because if I stopped streaming, I would have missed it a lot. And I feel like there's some stuff I would have missed out on if that didn't happen. But I started at home, and then I would be working and also going to college and working 40 hours. And then I would stream at night with my little laptop thing. And then I went to college and I got a dorm, and then I went to a house, and then I moved back home. So streaming has been been with me for the whole time in life for 7 years.
And my question was, you know, having roommates, presumably, and you say you did, like, was there ever any like, oh my God, man, can you just shut up?
Some of them were cool with it. Other ones were kind of like, you're doing this, you're not really going to get anywhere. And I didn't let that bother me because I just enjoyed it. It was just an escape for me. It was fun, and it still is to this day. That's the main reason. I always tell people, if you're not having fun, why do it at all, you know?
That's a weird thing for, like, I almost more would understand them being like, look, man, like, I don't want to have to hear this. But to be like, you're not going to get anywhere, like, what? Who are you?
Well, and that's the thing. There was a time where I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I think it was my 4th year. I almost quit streaming. I just felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do or how I was going to go. But then, you know, it just one day it started picking up, and it was probably the best decision I made to keep moving forward.
How much do you credit? I know you have a lot of people that you have sort of looked up to streaming. You've interviewed them on your podcast, some of them. You know, how much do you credit being able to see that and that sort of perseverance with your own?
Could you repeat the question again?
Sorry, I didn't phrase it very well. Basically, how influential was it to be able to see people sort of pushing through that on you? Like, is that kind of what made you think, like, okay, I can do this?
I think it more so when I was at that point, I was seeing people get partnered. I was seeing people quit. So, like, my thing is that I think it wasn't really watching other people, because I always felt like people do things differently. I can never be the same as somebody else. So for me, it was a lot of, okay, if you can't do this, then maybe you should stop. And so what I did at that point is I had a lot of extra things like bot commands and all this stuff. All this pressure I was adding onto myself, it overwhelmed me. And it made me feel like I wasn't good, or if I wasn't doing something right. So what I did is I had the gameplay, the camera, that is it. And if I can't do this, why am I doing this at all, or feel confident about it? And once I did that, and I felt like I could slowly add things in to enhance the channel, that's when it became easier for me. Sometimes it's a good thing to kind of scale back and, you know, strip down all those extra things and overlays, and to really see if you could do it with the nuts and bolts. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. before we leave the early days, do
Yeah.
you still have a block of wood keeping your chair from rolling out of frame?
Yeah, the wood story. So for those who don't know, where I live, we have a wood stove, and every August, which around this time actually, there's usually a face court of wood that I have to stack. And I just got a new desk around Christmas time, and I had a chair. But the problem is that the office I am in, I mean, I wish I could show you, but it's about a 90-degree angle. So basically, anytime that chair would move, it would move downwards, or if you're turning the desk the other way, it would go backwards. So there was the floor is not flat. So what I used to do is take this piece of wood, and I would put it in front of my wheels so I wouldn't hit the desk all the time. But then I got smart, and I said, I bet you there's certain things you could do for this chair to be stationary. And what I did is I took these little wheels you put in the bottom, casters, but they're planted. So they got feet on them, so they don't roll. And yes, I do still have the block of wood sitting in the corner to remind me of the wonderful days
it's that block of wood? It's not like a different one?
No, it's the same ones. I got two of them. I have two of them still up here as a fun thing. And then people still joke about it to this day. So I sometimes I'll show it just to make them laugh. So
one thing I appreciate is you recently played and finished Bubsy. And the reason I appreciate it is everybody hates on that game. I don't think it's bad.
So Bubsy, my review of Bubsy, interesting. So yeah, I just did about 5 days of Bubsy, which means that I did 5 streams of Bubsy, about 4 or 5 hours a piece. I did with passcodes because it's not worth not doing passcodes. And the game gave them to me, so I was like, all right, let's just do this. So Bubsy for me, it was like a mediocre platformer to me. Like it was okay. But the problem with Bubsy is that, well, you know, I love the little humor Bubsy has, and I guess that was the same voice actor who does Wacko. Yakko Warner. They basically Bubsy was a mediocre platformer, and the thing is that it was okay with platforming, and what I didn't like about it is the fact that Bubsy was center in the camera, so it was really tough to see what's ahead of you unless you hold the left shoulder button, but then Bubsy's on the far left and you got to worry about things dropping down behind you, or if you go to the far right, it's the same situation. But my number one bone to pick with it is the menu. The menu to get to the password screen is all select, and it's so awkward to use. But also the jumping physics in the boss fight is really, really bad. The final boss, I was just tapping Y, and hopefully I won the boss fight. That was my whole strategy.
I did notice I've never seen the boss fight until then, and I did know it was like, all right, I don't know why that one worked and that one didn't.
Yeah, I just kept tapping Y, and you could hear on the microphone too. All you hear is tap, 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 tap. And that's all I was doing. I was just doing the float attack to hopefully get it, because there were so many projectiles and stuff in that final boss fight. You're just like, what are we doing? But the thing is that when you jump in even normal boss fights on the enemy or the boss or whatever it is, you have no control. And there's like resistance almost when jumping and landing on top of that enemy or boss. So that was the challenging part about Bubsy. Everything else was okay. The music was all right. I kind of enjoyed it, even though I heard it for a while. It was pretty good. Like I said, average platformer. But there are some good things. I really do try to look at the good things in video games, whatever I play.
When I was watching you play that, I started thinking, what's the most controversial thing I can say about this? And I won't go too far and say that it's just straight up better, but I think Bubsy does some Sonic things better than Sonic. I think the speed of Bubsy, and I've always felt Sonic, like the speed thing, it's just such a core part. I mean, it is the game, but it's always like, but then there's so much you're missing in the level. Like, if I go as fast as I can, there's like a whole section I didn't touch, where I feel like Bubsy is a little more just like, yeah, run super fast and then like fall down a chute, and you know, and you won't miss things.
Yeah, the thing is too, Sonic kind of does that too. If you go too fast, you will miss things. And what's similar about Bubsy and Sonic is that there's multiple ways to get through the level, which I kind of enjoyed because there was better ways, easier ways. I can't, it's just Sonic, because the funny thing is I didn't really play Sonic or really play the whole game until like a year or two ago. So it's still fresh for me. And the one thing I wish Bubsy did that Sonic does better is the ring system versus one hit insta kill.
Yeah.
But I can see that the speed is definitely faster, it feels like, and you're not sure where to go. But I'm not sure that's because the camera is like kind of more, I don't know. Maybe the camera positioning does that, but I don't know. That is controversial, and I'm sure people will have words about that.
Everyone's turned off the show at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I hear certain people going, "What's this guy talking about?" But everybody sees video games differently, and I've learned that over the years, and that's why it's always interesting to hear what others have to say about a game I played through, because I can relate and talk about it because I went through that experience.
What about, you said this way back, so fair enough if you've changed your mind or whatever, but you said that sometimes you like to lurk in channels as a viewer because you feel like the streamer's tone changes as they know more people are here. Is that still true? And do you feel the same way? Like as soon as you notice more viewers, are you suddenly changing your persona?
So about that, I think sometimes people just get nervous. That's what I mean by that, is that some people aren't used to having, because I know what it was like to have, one or two viewers, and all of a sudden you get 20 people come in for a raid, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, geez, there's more people here. Are they going to blah, blah, blah? I went through that. I got nervous, and I used to change myself, and I get nervous, and I feel like I had to put on the show and all this stuff about, 4 years ago or whatever. But then I learned, like, wait, this person chose to raid me because they like who I am. I should just keep being what I am and don't be reactive because of the viewership or whatever it is. And that's why, I never look at my view count or anything like that. For the most part, especially during stream, don't do that because you'll go through a lot of emotional roller coasters. But I still think sometimes people will act different if they have more people there. But I won't stop watching a stream because of the way they change. It's just an observation I made. And I would never take shots at anybody for reacting because I've been there. It just takes time and experience to get used to that. I think it's a learning curve more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think of like improv. I was never good at improv, but I have friends who are. And it's sort of that, like, the second you're trying to be funny, it's over. Like, you need to just kind of be natural and the scene will become funny.
Yeah, I think a lot of what streaming has taught me and maybe others is that a lot of times because people think like, oh, I gotta be this person or this gimmick, or I want to aspire to be like this person. But in reality, being yourself is like a unique thing in its own. Yourself becomes a personality. Because I know people can point out, nervous tics I have, or the way I talk, or maybe I can never pronounce a Twitch name. And that's, something to them, or inside jokes that it's because it's just my personality or the way that I conduct the stream is just kind of what it's developed to be. And I feel like personality wise, just being yourself is probably the safest thing. And not only that, you can be yourself longer than faking being something you're not.
Mm-hmm. Your viewers want to know, when will you finally finish Secret of Mana?
Good question. It's on the straw poll right now. You can vote for it. The reason I took a break from it is because I wasn't mentally prepared for a whole bunch of stories and a lot of information at that time. And I was just like overwhelmed by Secret of Mana. And I'm like, all right, we're going to put this on hold. This is a really hard decision for me because I literally did not sleep for like 2 days thinking about, all right, do I want to, put this game in the back burner? Because I really do care about my commitment to like playing the game. But that was one game at that time I was just not ready for. And I really wanted to basically wait for it for the right time. And because at that point, I was just not ready for information. Wasn't ready for this long-term story. So, and I didn't want to rush it either because I know people care about that game. and I wanted to get the best experience. And I felt like that time I just couldn't do it. So I made the one-time decision of, okay, we're going to put this game away. We'll add it later. And then we hit a charity goal, and then we added it back. So
Not sleeping for 2 days. I mean, you know, obviously, kudos for taking it as seriously as you do. But you know, does that make you think, well, maybe I need a break here?
I don't think so. I mean, not sleeping for 2 days is that like I sleep, but I think about it a lot, and it's because I really do care about what I do. I mean, it's something that I enjoy doing. So like every time I play a game, or if I add a game or I commit to a game, it becomes a part of me too. And I think that's part of the experience of my stream as well, is that people feel that I'm on this journey and I'm committed to do this thing, and they're along for the ride. And, you know, in a way, they keep me motivated from not giving up on a game, because they either make jokes or we laugh or we're sarcastic about certain things. Kind of like when I spent 83 days playing Adventure Island for the NES,
Yes,
and I didn't know about
that.
I didn't know about the Hudson Bee in the manual, because I don't read the manual, and chat kept it a secret for 83 days. And I stuck through that every single day. Even on my birthday, I did. And that was, and the funny thing is that and the Battletoads playthrough, I would go into other channels and be like, listen, don't tell him about anything about Adventure Island. Don't tell him anything about what's in the manual. Don't do anything. There were other streamers talking about it. It was crazy. So I would go into a channel and be like, oh, hey, you're playing Super Mario World. This is cool. Oh, hey, Knight, how's it going? All right, guys, don't say anything about Adventure Island. I know he's working on it.
That's super cool.
It is. It's really humbling that people not only tune in or like pay attention, but also they respect like my format. And that's important to me, because I try to keep it together and in that format as long as possible, and trying to protect it. And I feel like it's important. I think people look forward to that, because I don't think a lot of people do that kind of format. I mean, some people do, but they kind of like have chat help them, but not like totally isolated. You know what I mean?
Who had the greater sigh of relief when you finally beat Adventure Island? Was it you, like, hey, I beat it, or was it chat, like, now we can finally tell you about this?
Good question. So there is a clip. Well, there's two clips. One of me finally eating the boss. I like freaked out. I'm like, oh, it's over. Finally, we can go to a new game. And then chat was just static, and they just made me. They're like, Knight, listen, you need to stream for like 10 more minutes. We got to show you something. I'm like, all right, well, what is it? What am I missing? Because I told them, I'm like, guys, I don't understand. Someone told me they beat Adventure Island like in 4 days. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. Maybe I'm just not good at the game. You know what I mean? So they showed me the bee, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And then they showed me that there's actually shortcuts or warps throughout the games, and they take it to different places. And I'm like, holy cow. And I'm like, guys, we've been done with this like a week, like in the first couple of days, if this was the case. But what's great about that experience is that I feel like it kind of showed people like my commitment to wanting to complete the game, and my commitment to the channel. And also it makes for a good story, and for people to be like, 83 days, are you serious? I'm like, yep, that you can ask anybody who was there. So it was all in good fun.
So I don't think Secret of Mana counts for this, because I wouldn't say you like quit because, oh, this is too hard. But is there any, it sounds like you basically play a game till you're finished. Is there any game so far that you're like, I can't do it?
Well, there was one game I quit, but this is before, like, I would say my 4th year is when I really started doing these full-on playthroughs. There was a game I actually stopped playing, and there's going to be a lot of heat for this probably, but so there was a game called Zelda Twilight Princess for the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
I got sick of the wolf section. I could not handle it. I was like, I'm not sitting here playing Wolf Simulator. And my one moderator, the Juker, kept yelling at me and saying, Knight, you told me the story and you were on the last wolf section. You would have been done. And I go, well, I couldn't handle it. It's like, we're being a wolf. It's Zelda. I'm going to play as Link, not a wolf the whole time. And I think at that time, that was when I was in my dorm in college, probably had a different perspective on the game itself at that time. But that's the one game I never finished, and maybe one day we'll do it. But I just couldn't get through the wolf section in Zelda. I thought the game looked great, and you know, it was like Zelda, but it's just I play as that darn wolf the whole time.
There is one more thing your viewers want you to know. Did you know Mario 2 is actually Doki Doki Panic in Japan, a totally different game?
Very funny. So there's actually a meme behind that. Because in every game I played through, there's always like some type of running meme. Either it's like a repetitive, obvious fact, like Doki Doki Panic. There's always some type of running joke about that. And every game I played through, and we always joke about how there's always that one common comment, or maybe there's some meme about the game. But the Doki Doki Panic thing is that we joked about it because I was telling them like someone was acting like that was a fresh fact, like back in 2018 or something. It was before I even played the darn game. I knew about it, and I'm like, okay. Then it eventually led up to the playthrough of playing Mario 2. I heard nothing about Doki Doki Panic the whole time, so it was just kind of a running joke.
I do want to ask you about wrestling for a particular reason. I know you've met several wrestlers. William Regal, you said, was a delightful man. You have met the one I want to ask about. Chris Jericho signed your drumstick, and the reason I asked that, or want to bring that up, is Jericho is from where I'm from, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I wonder. I wonder if you can name. I'm sure there are more, but I can name at least. More than Jericho, at least 2 major wrestlers from here. Can you name them?
Well, we can't count Rush, the band, my all-time favorite. Let's see, Bret Hart.
Oh, I'm talking Winnipeg, Manitoba, not Canada.
Sorry, Kenny Omega, right?
Kenny Omega is one, yeah.
And then
I think you'll be surprised by the other.
Lance Storm?
No, he is not from. I believe he's from Ontario.
Oh, that's right. See, I just grouped Canada as one big thing. Just
it's a big
kidding.
place.
Manitoba. Oh, no. Kevin Owens or from Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
So Sami Zayn, Quebec, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You let me know.
Roddy Piper.
Funny story about Piper. Yeah. My friend actually met Piper. He did a whole weekend. He was doing a double shot at a show, and he actually got to spend time with Piper for those 2 days. But yeah, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a local high school here with his picture, Roderick Toombs.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did meet William Regal. There's a funny story about Regal. I went to I think it was the first or second ever WrestleCon. It was when WrestleMania was in New Jersey. It was the one with CM Punk and The Undertaker. I think it was, there was a couple of them. And, but we went to the WrestleCon, and William Regal I think he was like a last minute fill-in or something because something didn't go right. But Regal was working for WWE at the time, so I was surprised. So there's this big line, right, at this WrestleCon. He's like in this big convention, and he's like in the middle table, and there's a big line going out the door. And I'm in the line waiting. Me, my friend, and the wrestling promoter I work with, he's behind the line. And funny enough, I go up there, and when you get to the booth, there's just 2 tables, and William Regal standing there, and there's a guy that takes the money, and there's usually a person taking a picture. Well, I get up there, and I'm kind of looking, and this guy who's handling the money is like all distracted and stuff. And this guy just anxiously has his camera waiting to take a photo with Regal. And I'm just like, hey, listen, I'll take the photo for you. I don't have a problem doing that. And he's kind of like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'll get a couple good ones. That way I don't have to worry about it. I'll just do it for you. And so I go and I take the camera, and then I get the photo ready, take it for him. And then me and Regal are kind of looking at each other. This guy's still doing whatever. I mean, he collected that other guy's money, so he's kind of doing whatever. And then Regal looks at me and he goes, don't worry about the man and the money. You just come over here. I'm like, because I had money in my hand ready to give it to him. He goes, don't worry about that. I go, all right. So I get my phone, and my friend takes a picture for me. And then I told him, like, you're on my bucket list of people to always meet. And I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with people and to talk to them for a bit. And then when I left, my friend said that William Regal said out loud, "That's the reason I love what I do and why I do these things, is for people like that."
Oh, that's very nice.
It was. And he didn't charge me for the photo. I never forgot that. And I was like, man, that was like one heck of experience. William Regal, such a nice guy, nothing but good things.
And where is that photo now?
Photo is on my phone somewhere, I believe. I don't know where it is. My friend has copies of it. I told him to keep it. And next to the other photos we took with other wrestlers there. WrestleCon was really cool. I recommend anybody to go to a WrestleCon. At least when I went, you can kind of like walk around and, just kind of talk to them, just like hanging out. I think at the time, the Young Bucks were Generation Me and having a TNA table. They were sitting there. There was just a lot of people just kind of, hey, what's going on? Some people didn't care about the photo ops. They just kind of wanted to hang out with people. Are
you excited for the AEW game?
Well, that's a great question. Since the graphic and everything's in beta, I just want to see what happens. I try not to watch too much gameplay and trailer, but I'm really hoping that it's a basic game. I hope the control schemes are okay, because I know that like there's been other attempts with other companies doing video games, like TNA, for example. I thought it had fantastic graphics at the time for the Xbox 360. Looked amazing. But the controls were really weird from what I played of the game and seen. It's repetitive and all this other stuff. I'm really hoping that the mechanics are there, at least for this first game, and then maybe the next one that comes out, if they do make another one, will kind of add more to it. I'm not expecting it to be all bells and whistles, but I'm hoping for at least something, playable and good,
What do you think is the best wrestling game?
Good question. Oh, me and my friend has discussion all the time. I think Here Comes the Pain was always a favorite of mine. I believe it was SmackDown versus Raw 2010 or 11, whichever had Rob Van Dam in it. They had the best physics for a SmackDown versus Raw game. If you ever go back and play it, you could like reverse suplex somebody onto a trash can, and like all these physics they were really emphasizing on at the time. Then it went downhill after that. No Mercy, obviously everyone says that, but that was a fun one. It was just really, really fun to play. The GameCube games, I loved the Day of Reckoning, WrestleMania, I think it was 19. Those were fun games to punch, and the game modes were crazy. WrestleMania, I have a really weird love for WrestleMania 21 on the Xbox. I don't think a lot of people have played that. That was only exclusive on Xbox, and for some reason, I liked the story mode in it. And it was an awkward game, but it looked really good for the time. And it's just a lot of them. I can't think of any more at the top of my head that really stick out to me. But those kind of hitting everything on the head a little bit. I feel like those are the games I probably will keep going back to and playing again.
When I was in grade 9, which is a long, long time ago, I had WCW NWO Revenge for N64. And really good game. It had that whole like grapple system though, which I do think works, but it's also sort of like really like wrestlers aren't like grappling before they do every single move. But I remember coming home one night. I don't know where I was, but I came home at like 9:00, and my mom's like, "Oh, there's a bunch of girls here, like from your school." I was like, "Oh, wow, okay, awesome." And they were all playing my Revenge game. And literally the second I came downstairs, they're like, "We gotta go." It's like, oh my God.
You're like, why? That's a pretty fun memory. The fun thing about like N64, for some reason, the console itself, it just reminds me of four people plugging in a controller and playing games, whether it was at a sleepover at a friend's house or whether you were at a buddy's house or whatever you were doing. There was always Mario Party. There was always N64 games. That was a console for me that like really brought people together. Or if people didn't afford a console, they always went to a buddy's house and they have the Player 2 controller that probably has something wrong with it. And they just play the game. And that's one of the like best memories I've had for the console. Even though a lot of people say, quote unquote, it aged badly. I still think there's still good about it. And I just feel like it was why I like that console too, is it reminds me of like a lot of like togetherness and multiplayer. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely, I think it came out when I was maybe grade 6, grade 7, and yeah, so it was the perfect time where suddenly, you know, wow, 4 people. It was just literally like, come over, let's play Mario Kart or whatever.
Yep.
You are the creator of Casters of the Round, a Twitch team, which I am familiar with Twitch teams, but I've never really delved into, like, what is a Twitch team? Why have a Twitch team?
So a lot of people use Twitch teams for different things. Maybe it's for a cause or some type of purpose of recognition or identity for people in a group of streamers. For my purpose, I just made a team to kind of, instead of shouting out a bunch of people like, hey, anybody in my team, go follow them. Like somebody reached out to me for like doing a charity and I couldn't do it. I said, hey, go contact anybody in my team. They'll probably get back to you and they can try to give you an answer. I think that was my purpose of it. It wasn't like I'm trying to take over the streaming world or anything. It's just really people that I admired or people who I think have potential or people that I love to see do better or grow or I have faith in, or just people that I really enjoyed their streams. I invited them to the team at one point. It's not really taking any new members right now because I just don't really have the time to manage all that. I wish I did more with the team, but a lot of people seem to use that as some type of purpose or tool to either bring, again, some type of cause or some type of reasoning to bringing people together. For me, it was just like, hey, here's a list of people, go check them out. And that's pretty much the reason why I made a stream team.
I am told that you like to tease one team member, at least one, but specifically Game Mistress, that NTSC is better than PAL. Now, I know nothing about this, but an article I read on howtogeek.com tells me that technically PAL is better than NTSC.
So, graphically, it can look better. I always joke with Game Mistress because she would play the PAL version of certain games, like PAL version of Batman, PAL version of Castlevania, where it's notably quote unquote slow because the hertz is 50 versus 60, and that messes with the audio of the game. And I always pick on her because she plays on original hardware and she lives in the PAL region, so all she really gets is like PAL cartridges and stuff. But funny enough, I did a TikTok series of taking because on the Mr. FPGA, you can actually change the system. So you could play on a PAL NES and then put on the quote unquote US cart, and it would either speed it up or slow it down. And I did a bunch of games that kind of like mess around with that. They even have a Dendy system on the Mr., which is really interesting, which was a weird console, but. Yeah, I do pick on her sometimes about that, and we always joke around about it. But that stems from, you know, people always being like, "Oh, this sounds slow," or "This sounds fast," or whatever.
When you did that sort of experiment on the Mister there, did you notice like any games that were really like, "Wow, this is much better on this versus this"?
Sometimes, I mean, like I said, I take the wrong console and the wrong version of the game on purpose, and I speed it up or slow it down. And some of it just broke. I think I tried PAL on, I think it was US Battletoads, and I got to the turbo tunnel, and
oh yeah,
and the actual, like, you know, that bike section, actually everything floated up halfway up to the screen, and it was just really glitchy. So it was fun. It was fun to do that. For the most part, I think it really boils down to is what you grew up with and what you remember. Because I had conversations with people about like, you seriously played Sonic at this speed? And they go, yeah, that's all we knew. And that even goes further to like, I didn't really know a lot about retro gaming until like maybe in 2018 when I really started to learn. Like, I didn't know what a Mega Drive was. I thought people were using that term as like a fancy term, like, oh, this is a Mega Drive. I'm like, can you just say Genesis? What's the big deal? And I didn't realize it was marketed as the Mega Drive in other regions of the world. In my own little bubble, I'm like, oh, it's a Genesis. It's a Genesis. So it's always interesting to find out new things like that.
Yeah. So do you still do, you're a drummer. Do you still drum along to game themes at all? Do you have streams that are dedicated to drumming?
Not anymore. And that's because my electric kit isn't like really put together well, so I don't do too much with it. Sometimes I'll still play, but I don't really do as much game covers and stuff as I like to. I like to get into it at some point, but because I have so much in my on my plate, I don't see myself doing those as much unless there's like a spontaneous creative drive to do it. But I don't really have too many plans to get the drum strings back on.
And have you ever got involved with the VGM scene?
Not really. I mean, I've known people, it's now Nico Tengoku. He was the 8-bit stereo on YouTube. You probably, if you ever go on YouTube and you search NES music, you'll find him. He does all the stereo mixes of all the NES games. And then there's also Zolfir's Domain, who I gotten to know him pretty good. But I never really got into it. I do appreciate it, though. I appreciate people reserving a lot of the video game soundtrack. I love remixes. I love the what do they call it? Retro wave remixes they do. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I just appreciate the music of video games because it takes so much time and effort to paint that picture of what environment you want.
Before I let you go, we got to talk about Streaming Talks, the podcast that you have 5 episodes for. It's on hiatus. You were saying that, you got a lot going on, and editing takes a long time, but you want to bring it back. Any idea when or how that might happen?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, as you know, you do a podcast, and you know how long editing takes. If you have 2 hours worth of audio, that's like 2 weeks worth of work, especially if you're doing other activities besides just editing, because you want the storytelling to be right and all this other stuff. And for what it would take for me to open that gate back up would be to have someone edit for me. I feel like having an editor would save me a lot of stress from the podcast because I like doing the interview part, and that's easy for me because I know a lot of people who'd be interested and have a good story. But I think a lot of it just really boils down to having those extra responsibilities. Like even every month now, I do commentary for a local wrestling promotion. They stream that on Twitch, and we do that once a month. So that's also consuming. So it's really a time thing, and the commitment to. Because if I wanted to do it, I would do it on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis and have an episode out. Because people really enjoyed it, and I had a really good reception about it, and people really enjoyed the stories of streamers in their journey. And I feel like that is something that should be archived and kept in history, because there's going to be a day where that streamer stops streaming and we'll never know their story. So that was one of the reasons I even started that podcast, was to keep that timeline in a capsule. And that way, someone ever want to know about this person, here it is. Take that capsule and you can look at it and you can listen to it. And that's their story right from the horse's mouth. Because I think it's important for people to tell their own story instead of like someone else just taking articles or what they've seen from the person and in their streams.
I have a similar, I got into this started as a school project, as I told you before. We started many, many years ago, but, got more serious lately. But as far as the interview format, I think like many writers, I procrastinate. And often I found my writing, when it came to articles or whatnot, didn't do it. I never was happy with it. And eventually I was like, well, why don't I just put the interview out? And then, I can't get anything wrong. Because It's right there.
And there's no misinterpretation or especially when you're reading quotes and you're not sure what tone they're using, you're not really sure what that really means. And I feel like hearing it from the person and them expressing the stories is really impactful. I mean, you can even look up, for example, wrestling, plenty of podcasts, hearing stories of what it was like back in the day and how they felt and all this stuff. You can hear it right from them. And I think that's important to people, that they hear it straight from the person. And sometimes it's even better. As much as you can be a great interviewer, you'll never reenact or give that story or the same storytelling as a person who was there and directly can tell you.
Do you have a dream interview for that show?
Oh, I don't know, because to be honest with you, I when I did the 5 episodes, I reached out to people that I thought were either important to me or people that I thought should really have a story. Like, for example, the Andy Social Network. He's a 2-part episode. He was 4 hours long, but there was a lot of stuff in there his viewers didn't know, because Andy never had the time of day to just talk about his life. And he gave me a whole night. And I said, okay, let's talk. And then we went through his whole timeline and people learned about him. Even though like sometimes streamers will tell bits and pieces about their life, they never had the time to fully think about and have an intimate conversation with somebody about like how they got here, you know? And then, you know, to be honest with you, it's just, I would love, my dream interview is, you know, people just, I wish I could interview everybody almost, because I feel like people have really unique stories and different backgrounds. And I feel like every interview is always different. So I don't have like a dream interview, like, oh my gosh, if I get this person, it'd be awesome. That's just not me. I always try to appreciate the things I do have, and I never try to go outside the bubble usually. But, you know, that's a good question. I really don't have one, but because I feel like anybody I know could put on just as good of an episode.
Well, I will say I appreciate it. So, you know, researching for various guests, I try to take in whatever I can, listen to whatever interviews they've had before, you know, as much as I can. And I really don't mean to, I'm not coming down on anyone in particular. But often I run into podcasts in particular where like clearly there's been no prep. And they're almost like, the host is almost like just telling him, you know, well, and then I took the bus, and then I ate, quoting Futurama, and then I ate a piece of toast. And like, why is the guest even here? You're just talking about, but you clearly go into it like you're interviewing them. You have questions for them, things that you want to learn. So kudos.
Yeah. The thing is, I only have like an outline with a few things. And then what I do, I'll tell you exactly how I do the interviews for the people who are wondering how I get the questions I do. I listen to them and I'll have an outline. I'll be like, okay, before streaming, streaming, and then what the future holds. I only have 3 words written. And then as they're talking about stuff, I think of things and I write them down. I put them underneath. And then I remember to ask that question and I go in that order. And then if they go too much ahead, I go, well, you know, just to go back a little bit, what do you think about this? And I reel them back in, because that's also part of the interview process, is to get that story, that straight line almost. Even though that's can be tough and we go off topic. But I always write notes during the interview. I only have a very small outline. I don't ever have questions written out unless I completely don't know the person. If I don't know the person, I'll try to get, you know, a little bit of research, but that's the beauty, is that you find out as you're listening, and, you know, if you're wrong about something, they will correct you. And then you learn something as well.
Mm-hmm. This episode comes out this coming Monday. For people who are listening on that date and beyond, what's the next game on the list?
Well, glad you brought that up. We're currently working on Mortal Kombat Mythologies, but I never know what game I'm going to be playing next, because chat votes through, well, right now it's Google Forms. They vote on the game, and then like once that game's done, we go to the next one. It's kind of like choose your own adventure almost. And in a way, secretly, this is a secret now, that it gauges me what people are into. That's the big thing. Because I feel like some people struggle with direction. I struggle with deciding what to play. So it kind of like one hand washes the other. They're showing interest, and I figure out what game I want to get into. And you know, that's the beauty of the channel. So currently working on Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero Mythologies for the PlayStation 1. I only got into one cutscene, and that was pretty fun to look at. And as far as like speedrunning stuff, I'm doing working on Mad City, which is the Famicom version of Bayou Billy, which is really fun. And then King of the Monsters 2 was another project I'm kind of still working on. And then I'm not sure what's in the brand for that. That's on the second channel. And then you can also catch me doing commentary about every month on Twitch for a wrestling show, which is fun to do.
All right. People can check out MrrrKnight, twitch.tv/MrrRKnight. I didn't know about the wrestling thing, and I'm really mad at myself about that. Where can we find that?
So, all right. So it's at Excite Wrestling, CITE Wrestling. It's on Twitch. So that's twitch.tv/Excite Wrestling. I run their streams, and I just happen to be a commentator. Then we also have Kate from Fightful Select, who just joined me for color commentary the past 2 shows. She's been really fun, and she's from the area, and she's learning how to do commentary with me. So not to go backwards on wrestling, but I actually commentated with Kevin Kelly before. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
So real quick, Kevin Kelly was in Ring of Honor at the time, and he came in and did a random seminar, and it was like a second show. And for those who don't know, I set up the stream, so I make sure all the cameras and all the audio is working. So through the seminar, he's doing the seminar, and I'm setting up the stream. That's just kind of how it is, and doing all the 3 cameras and all that stuff. So I would just, at the end, I do the commentary. It was kind of like my reward almost. Then the promoter's like, yeah, Kevin's going to do commentary. I'm going to be on there with you. And I go, what? He's like, he's doing it for 2 matches. And it was my second time ever doing anything commentary wise. And what happened is that Kevin at first was like, why weren't you backstage and, trying to get information on people, all this stuff. And I go, and he's giving me all this advice and also saying, hey, smarten up at the same time, which is great. And I said, well, I respect everything and I appreciate it. He goes, it's only my second time. And he's like, well, disregard what I said. That was freaking awesome. I'm not going to say the other word, but that was freaking awesome. And so that made me feel good. Like, okay, he didn't even realize it was my second time doing the show. And it really stems back with video games of like commentating your own wrestling games and commentating over the commentators watching TV, or maybe playing with G.I. Joes, doing wrestling moves and calling the moves. I gotten advice from Matt Stryker, Mark Rolando. I got really lucky sometimes with some of the people I met, and magically I got access to advice from people. So it's really funny how something like streaming and Twitch opens doors for other opportunities. If I didn't know how to stream, I wouldn't be able to do commentary, which originally was my dream job. And I learned, you know what, I'm okay with doing once a month. I'm okay with that. And doing this for a wrestling show. It's fun.
I think that is awesome. That is very inspiring.
You never know who's watching or who needs to know what. Because we were going to do all that wrestling stuff with Excite. I don't know if you ever heard of Wrestle Circus before. They were like a big promotion on Twitch. We were going to do it before Wrestle Circus did, and then they kind of just took the ball and ran with it, and they really were successful until they folded a couple years ago. And that kind of put a bug up the promoter's butt to go and try this. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I can hook things up, and we can make it work. So, but now we went from doing stuff at American Legion and fighting to get the internet to now going to an actual venue that the promotion actually owns, and they run shows every month out of. This show that's coming up, they're having Too Cold Scorpio, Crowbar. They're also having Fandango, aka Dirty Dango, now he's called. And I'm forgetting one name. Danny Doring will be there too. And it's really fun. So it's gonna be a great show. That's Excite Wrestling. It's on Twitch. You can catch them, and I'll probably be doing commentary for them if they stream it. And it's gonna be a steel cage match too there. So.
And I don't want to forget that if people want to check out your speed running, they can go to MrrrRruns, which is twitch.tv/MrrRruns. MrrrKnight, thank you for being here.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on board, and I'm really looking forward to listening to it. And I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. And thank you for the questions and doing your research. You did a pretty darn good job. I wasn't expecting, because I was expecting to say the things you already said, and you know what? That's impressive, and I appreciate it.